In Ohio today, voters in the state's 12th congressional district will elect their next congressman. 31-year-old Democrat Danny O'Connor is looking to upset State Senator Troy Balderson in a district President Trump won handily in 2016. Balderson appeared at a rally with President Trump on Saturday, but despite the president's endorsement, polls show Balderson in a virtual tie with his opponent. Jessie Balmert is a state government reporter for the Cincinnati Enquirer. She joins me now from Columbus, Ohio. All right, so let's talk about this. Ohio's 12th district has been reliably red for decades, but now, the latest polls are saying that this is going to be a particularly close race. So what's going on? Are Democrats particularly fired up? Are Republicans losing the faith? What's happening here?
Well, I think for one thing, it's a special election. It's the first time these voters have gotten to pick someone new in several decades, and so that makes it interesting to begin with. But also, Trump is a person who gets people energized on both sides. Republicans are enthusiastic about him, and Democrats are enthusiastic about sending a message that maybe he isn't as popular in the Midwest than some might want him to be perceived as.
So we mentioned that Balderson was at a rally with President Trump on Saturday. This morning, the president has been tweeting about him basically all morning, at least a few tweets this morning. But on the flip side, he also has the backing of Governor Kasich, John Kasich. And John Kasich, said that this is a very independent candidate here, not connected to the president. Does Balderson want this sort of robust support from President Trump? Is this helping or harming?
It's hard to say. There's very little that John Kasich and Donald Trump agree on right now, so Troy Balderson might be one of those few things. I think in this district, there are some voters that are really going to like that this is a candidate Donald Trump has endorsed, and then there are going to be other people who would prefer a more John Kasich approach to these things. What does that mean for how Troy Balderson will be if he is elected to Congress? That's even harder to tell. I think you can see that he would be someone who would vote for a lot of the president's policies, but maybe express some reservations about things like separating, parents and children at the border, as he has said during the campaign.
So then on the flip side, the Democratic candidate says that, look, he doesn't need the endorsements from national figures. The president has been really trying to link him to the Democratic leadership, just tweeting this morning that O'Connor is controlled by Nancy Pelosi. So I want to play a little bit of what O'Connor had to say about getting public endorsement and bringing this campaign, making this campaign a national conversation.
It's much better to be out there in the community, crisscrossing the district like I have, than to have people fly in from Washington, D.C., be here for a few hours and then leave. These are folks who aren't invested in our community. They don't drive on our roads. Their kids don't go to our schools. They're not, dealing with a public health crisis like we have on opioids.
Okay, so it sounds like he wants to run a local race, focused on local issues. But, everywhere else, we're watching this district like it's supposed to be some sort of bellwether. What do you make of this strategy?
Well, Danny O'Connor has made the point that he wants new leadership. And so if that is going to be one of your messages or talking points, you can't exactly have all of the old leadership campaigning and stumping across central Ohio for you. So he's sticking to his message. I think we'll find out if it's a winning one.
Is it fair to look at this congressional district and sort of extrapolate some sort of story about what's going to be happening in November? We saw what happened in Alabama, we saw what happened in Pennsylvania, and now this seems to be sort of the next big contest to determine whether or not President Trump has support. But is that fair? Do the people in this district care about national politics, or do they care about local politics?
I think all politics is local, so of course they care about who's going to be representing them in Congress. In some ways, it's a good test because this is a district that really shouldn't be in play. It's reliably Republican. It is drawn to be a district that Republicans can win. And the fact that we're even having a conversation about it makes it interesting in a topic that's worth looking at, Trump's popularity in the area. But on the other hand, this is really an election to fill the remaining term of Pat Tiberi's, 4 to 5 months in Congress. These two candidates are going to be back challenging each other in November again. So it's hard to see this as having a massive national implication.
Right. So aside from President Trump, what are some of the other issues that are being talked about in this race?
I think there's a lot of discussion about Social Security and Medicare. There's been a lot of talk about, I know the Republican Troy Balderson has been trying to focus on some of those issues that traditionally drive Republicans to the polls. So access to firearms, access to the Second Amendment, and, you know, topics like abortion and so forth. And so, you know, like a typical congressional campaign, you hit those issues that you think will be popular with your voters. Danny O'Connor has really tried to appeal to both Democrats and Republicans. He kind of has to in this seat, whereas it seems like Troy Balderson is really relying on those Republican voters to turn out for him.
Just one more quick sort of President Trump question. You know, I read that Democrats, at least in early voting and absentee ballots, the Democrats have really been coming out in droves. I'm wondering if, you know, having the president tweet or having the president actually visit the area, if that has energized Democrats as much or more than Republicans.
Yeah, I think we'll tell from the election results who was energized more, but I think he has certainly riled people up on both sides of the aisle.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jessie Balmert. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks for having me.